Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our first keynote speaker this morning, who is my good friend and colleague, Alina von Davier. Alina is the Chief of Assessment at Duolingo, which is an organization I'm sure is familiar to many. She's the founder of EdAstra Tech, a service-orientated edtech company, an honorary research fellow at the University of Oxford, and senior research fellow at Carnegie Mellon. Alina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mark. So nice of you to have that introduction. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be sharing my work with you all. I will bring in some new ideas, and I'm really excited to hearing what you will think about those. So I'm looking forward to the discussions after that. As Mark mentioned before, I work for Duolingo, and it's a really nice sandbox for us because it's a tech company and it gives us the opportunity to reconsider what it means to build assessment in the 21st century. So today I will talk about my opinions about the future of education in the time of AI. And before I go into the details of the presentation, I want to talk a bit about where else during my day-to-day life I interact with AI. So definitely I work on computational psychometrics, which is a concept that I introduced in 2015, and I need to share the news with you. I just learned that it got an award from NCME for outstanding scientific contribution. But otherwise, I work on the development of the Duolingo English Test, DET, how we call it. And within those developments, we work in generating content automatically, scoring or grading automatically, doing an adaptive administration, nowadays considering AI approaches such as Thompson samplings for selection of the items, and plagiarism detection, among other things. I also work with the team from Macat on developing items with AI for critical thinking. So today, my plan is to share with you some of our experiences with respect to AI. First, that AI is here to stay, and how we think about what it means for an assessment to have AI that is here to stay. And the way we approached that was for thinking of what is human-centered AI for assessment purposes, and what it means to make sure that our assessment principles are aligned with the applications of this powerful tool. Then I will move on to innovations in AI, and this is the area where I really am looking forward to your thoughts. I will talk about digital-first assessment. This is it's a bit less new for us at least, since that's what we've been doing for a while. But then I will talk about our new pet, personalized ensemble test. And this is one of the innovations that I'm proposing. Then I will talk about interactive tasks. This is what AI gives us, actually, an infinite set of possibilities of creating authentic testing experiences. Then I will talk about considerations for teaching. What does it mean to have AI in the classroom, and what considerations do we need to make once we have this tool with us, with all the good and the bad things that is coming along? What it means to embed AI in the classroom, what to teach, and how to consider new constructs that a collaboration with AI may reveal. So AI is here to stay. We have new jobs. We have new theoretical insights. So that's a given. We are starting from this assumption that AI is here, and we need to figure out how to best work with it for the good of our students and in education in general, as stakeholders. The question for us was, and still is, how do we integrate AI into learning and assessment systems in ways that respect human values? For example, fairness, inclusion, integrity, professional responsibilities. Actually, many of the things that the president of the college just mentioned. How do we make sure that these values are preserved while we are taking advantage of AI and AI tools? So the proposal here is to develop a conceptual structure for discussing the development of AI-based learning and assessment systems in such a way that they incorporate human values. This is based on a paper, actually it's supposed to come out soon. It's an edited volume from DEFI. So what is human-centered AI? This is a framework for placing the human values at the center of the development and the applications of AI system in any domain. If you just search for this term, you will find it everywhere. You will find it in the policies, you will find it in politics, you will find it in many domains. So the goals are to protect humans and their rights in the development and application of AI, and to ensure fairness, integrity, transparency, responsibility, but also to build trust. The framework that is helping us think about it, for assessment in particular, but also for learning, is to consider the traditional validity elements for tests and for learning system, combined with responsible AI standards and with human-in-the-loop practices. So I won't go into details for all of these elements. I recommend the paper that I mentioned, so it will be out soon. But there is an element of trust that can be built at the intersection of all of these approaches. And why do I feel that we are the right people to talk about that? Well, that's because we at Duolingo use AI throughout the test development process. And we've been probably the first who used AI everywhere throughout the assessment. And we believe that all this power comes with significant responsibility. And we see that as our responsibility to outline what standards, what community practices, what the human in the loop would mean in order to ensure that the human values are preserved. What is then responsible AI? So validity, I am sure everyone here is quite familiar with the concept of validity. And probably human in the loop seems to be as well quite common. You can understand what we mean there. But what do we mean by responsible AI? Now that AI is prominent in our daily lives, we do need to consider the practice of creating and using AI that's not only useful, but also safe and ethical. And the pillars that we consider for these standards are, again, fairness, privacy and security, accountability. And the examples for those that match each of these are algorithmic bias, data governance, user awareness. And all of these are part of the work that we've been doing in identifying and putting together the first set of responsible AI standards. Again, we see all over the world that there is an interest in understanding what it means to build or apply responsibly AI tools. And you see this increase over the last few years have been significant. People understand that this fascinating tool needs to have some sort of regulation that can help us all navigate the complex environment. So again, the DET put together the responsible AI standards for assessment, and you can find this on our website if you are interested in details. So now I'm moving to the new part, a few things that I would like to share with you from my own work and my colleagues, my team's work. And that's the part where I'm also looking forward to hearing what you think about. So first, I will talk about digital first assessment, because they represent the framework in which these innovations are actually set up. So what are digital first assessment and learning systems? They are environments that have been designed from the beginning to be online. They are designed with computational models and AI algorithm in mind. They are theory-based and evidence-centered. And they have to be valid, reliable, secure, and responsible, like any other quality assessment out there. What makes them special is the fact that they need to have integrated technologies. The platform must be fluid to allow for the integration of multiple data sets, but also from multiple automatic tools that come together to deliver such an assessment. Last but not least, we emphasize the test taker's experience. So in the past, most of the assessments have been concerned primarily with the value of the test for the stakeholders, for universities. Very few have actually thought about how easy or difficult it is for a test taker to actually travel to a test center and take the test, or how easy or difficult it is for a test taker to sit through a test of 3 to 4 hours. Do we really need such a long test? And this is actually a question for you all. So in the digital first assessment, we emphasize an easier experience for the test takers. We emphasize that the test needs to be available on demand, anytime, anywhere, and that the security is ensured through remote proctoring, asynchronous remote proctoring, so that there is no, big brother watching you while you are taking the test. This creates a very different testing experience, and we make the claim that this is part of the validity elements that support the quality of the score. If you are not stressed out as a test taker, then you can show in a much more reliable way what are your skills and abilities. Now, the part I want to talk about here is the fact that digital first involves a lot of automation. In order to create such a sophisticated system, one needs to figure out how to build automatic content generation, automatic grading, figure out the models that involve both psychometrics and AI for scoring, but also for recommender systems for learning, automatic quality assurance for the assessment. An assessment that is delivered continuously needs a very good quality assurance system in place, and automation in item piloting and review. We wrote a book chapter that is coming out soon, and the title for it is The Item Factory. We built that for our test, but the chapter is so written that it can provide recommendations for any other assessment or learning system. So here is one of the innovations that I was mentioning before. We are introducing I am introducing a personalized ensemble test, a PET. A personalized ensemble test is an ensemble of different test designs that efficiently optimizes the match of the test with the goals and abilities of test takers. For example, we could have multiple purposes for the test, such as academic and general English, as part of the same system. And we can adapt the items and the test to the particular goals of the test takers. Now, some of you may be familiar with the concept of CAT, computerized adaptive testing, which is quite well known in psychometrics as a test design. And this is how, in the past, the Duolingo English Test has been a CAT. We are moving from the CAT to a more general system, which is a PET. A CAT is a PET. And we are building systems that become personalized in addition to adaptive with respect to ability. Now, why can we do this now, and where does AI come into place? Well, obviously, this is the most flexible test design that I've seen before. So, and I'm then pretty sure that you haven't seen any other more flexible than this one. But AI makes it possible. It makes it possible in multiple ways. One is it makes it possible because through helping generate the item, those complex items, we need a lot of items to keep a pet running. And we could not do that by hand. So here is where AI is very helpful. It helps create those items at scale. Another element where where AI is helpful for sustaining, supporting a pet is for considering alternative routing methodologies for the adaptation. And similarly, on how we calibrate the items at the end. Now, of course, it's not all AI. So psychometric is still extremely important here because that's where we need the reliability, the validity, the comparability part. And that is achieved through relatively complex psychometric models. But we can do it. We have all the pieces together, and nowadays, finally, we have the technology to build such a thing. Now, other innovation in testing. So I'm moving now to a different topic. I want to share with you again something new. How can we create testing experiences that are not only personalized, as I mentioned before, but are also authentic? What do we mean by authentic? We mean experiences that are much more, are closer to what test takers would encounter in their everyday life, especially the future everyday life for which they aspire. So we are trying to build interactive tasks, multimodal tasks, and integrated tasks. So what do I mean by that? Interactive is where some sort of interactivity between the test taker and the system will take place. Multimodal means that it can involve, given that we are dealing with a language test, that it can deal with audio information, with video, with reading and writing. So all of those are multiple modalities, both in terms of delivery, but also in terms of responses from test takers. Last but not least, we want these tasks to be integrated. Integrated tasks are those in which multiple sub-skills are necessary to solve a task, to respond correctly. So let me give you an example. This is something we launched last spring in 23. It's an example of what we all call 21st century task, and it's an AI-based interactive listening. We would have the beloved characters from Duolingo speak to the test taker, and then we will have different scenarios, student to student, student professor, and we have different power relationships so that we can add variation to the language and the turns. And it represents these communicative purposes like request, advice, planning, and learning. Therefore, authentic tasks. Here is an example on how this would continue, such a dialogue would continue. So it's a mixture of audio information, but also reading text and responding to questions. So these were the recommendations, these were the innovations in assessment and for learning, things that we are actually already doing. So nowhere else the quote from William Gibson has been more true, that the future is actually here. It's just not uniformly distributed. And this is truly the case with the Duolingo English Test. So now I'm moving to the next topic, which is recommendations for teaching. How do I see the world from a teaching perspective? I recommend emphasizing an active use of AI. Emphasize the 21st century skills, the human skills, especially critical thinking. And consider that there are out there new constructs now. For example, writing with AI could be considered a different construct than writing by itself. This is a draft from UNESCO, actually, that I found quite useful. Take a look at it. If you are curious, you can find it online. They do also recommend a human-centered mindset. As you may imagine, I was quite pleased to see that. Consider ethics of AI, AI foundations and applications, pedagogy, and AI for professional development. I definitely support that teachers need more support for working with AI in an effective and useful and humanly centered way. So what specific recommendations for teaching with AI I would have? And here are just a few examples. Idea generator. Use AI to generate ideas. And then discuss these ideas in the classroom. Thinking of the AI tools as a Socratic opponent. Alone or in group, students engage with the tool. Then each student can write an argumentative essay. AI as a guide or tutor. One example is the way we use it. Personalized AI guide for learning as well as for assessment. Students give the AI a specific brief, and then they go back and forth with questions. A dynamic helper, where AI can provide a summary of what has been discussed and the student's current state of learning. And these are not all my ideas, so I recommend this paper from Sharpless from last year. Check it out. But here is a different approach to the same question. It's just that this time I'm saying recommendations for teaching for AI. Before, I had recommendations for teaching with AI. What do I mean for AI? For AI is how do we prepare our human students to be successful in a world where they might need to compete with AI. How can humans do better? What should we teach and assess? How can we teach and assess skills that are relevant for this new world? And my recommendation is the 21st century skills. Critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication. We need to focus on building courses and tests that teach and measure these skills. I have here a few approaches to measurement of these skills, partly from my work with a student, Kristen Lansing-Stoffler, who is doing her PhD in Amsterdam on critical thinking and creativity. She's been working on trying to pull out information from implicit measurement, where these skills are not explicitly taught, but of course they are necessary also in traditional education. And the question in her dissertation is, how do you make sense out of this information based on the type of projects and portfolios that students produce? Another example is explicit measurement. Here is an example from Makat that is building courses to teach critical thinking, creativity, and also assessing those. So in the case of Makat, everything is happened explicitly. In the case of traditional education, things are happen implicitly. And then there is a third way, which is what Roblox has been doing, which is involving role play and games for both teaching and assessment. Of course, there are challenges in all of these approaches, but this is why we are here. That's our job, to figure those out. So in summary, AI is here to stay. However, we need to be intentional and careful and make sure that the human values are preserved in our applications and uses of AI. And for that, we need standards that can be used both as guardrails internally, but also for audit purposes with external collaborators. Then we have innovations with AI, such as the type of assessments that we can build nowadays, including a personalized ensemble of test design. And we can build interactive tasks, as it is our new guided writing task with AI as a guide. We also have new considerations for teaching, and I would love to see more research on that as well. Embed the AI affordances in the classroom, teach and assess the 21st century skills, and considers that some of these new outcomes represent illustrations of a new construct, such as writing with AI. Also, probably some of you have seen the blog that I wrote for this event. So if you want to know more about the DET itself, please take a look at that blog as well. These innovations are not included in that blog. I wanted to keep that like a present for you. But my last comment here is that it takes a village to do the right thing. And it's a call to action for professional responsibility in education. And that's a call to action to all of you and all of us. Because the world is getting smaller and smaller, and we all deal with the same issues. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention.